Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. There's been so much progress, many moons of progress over the last decades. More girls are going to school, fewer girls are forced into early marriage, more women are serving in parliament, and positions of leadership and laws are being reformed to advance gender equality. Now, despite these gains, despite them, there are still many challenges, as like such discriminatory laws. That was a long word that I had to put in there. Discriminatory laws and the social norms that remain pervasive. Women who continue to be underrepresented at all levels of political leadership. 1 in 5 women and girls between the ages of 15, now listen to this, between 15 and 49 report, and these are only the ones that are reporting, experiencing physical or sexual violence by an intimate partner within a 12-month period. The World Health Organizational global goals are working towards gender equality by 2030. So we're living in a more equal world. The interesting thing, though, is that the main focus is on women. We, however, see gender equality for all genders, race, and age. It's good to have a focus. However, what we have found, though, is that us humans like to not only focus, but put it all in a box and label it. And in turn, things become stigmas, which we here at Future Forward Hub want to learn to release. Today, I'm joined by Future Forward Hub's resident contributors, Karin Monster-Peters, an energy healer with a vast background, and when I say vast, I mean a bloody vast background, in psychology, education, parenting, and life purpose work. And it's still continuing because she decided, hey, I'm bored, let's carry on studying. And we have Leah Hanna, a teacher by trade and a humanitarianism by heart. If you're going to have someone that really reads into your energy and how you're feeling, although she's not woo-woo from the heart, she definitely has the talent. She will see straight through your falsism. And we'll be conversing on the topic of gender equality today. And there'll be a few mistakes, and this is all just not going to be edited. So if I stutter and stumble and fart and cough, you're going to hear it. So it's all good. One of the World Health Organization goals, which is gender equality, is part of 17 of the global goals. At Future Forward Hub, we stand for 7 of these global goals that we support, and that we'll be conversing on Future Forward Hub. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, it's probably good for you to know that here I usually get together with my contributors and converse about one of the 7 global goals that we support, and give it about 4 to 6 weeks break before doing this podcast where we converse about the topic again. Why I do this? Because human beings change. What we may feel about something now may just change over time after conversing. And it's interesting to see what that change has been. Why? Because they're patterns and clues on how we can create change together. We may disagree, but we can be kind to one another to meet each other in the middle. Karin and Leah are continuing their conversation, and I'll be throwing in a few questions for them to continue the conversation. And this took place in 2020, obviously, in September 2020. And you can read the article on the website, The Pattern of Gender Equality in Society. Today, I want to dive into questions since that conversation in September, especially since we see gender equality not exclusive to women, but to all genders, race, and age. And one of the first things that we want to kind of, it's not complete, but we want to converse about it, is the payment gap, where women have been the pioneers in fighting for this right, not fully having won, but they have paved the way for other genders. So we're going to dive in here with Karin and Leah. With my first question, what are your personal solutions for the gender payment gap? Let's start with you, Karin. What do you feel from a personal perspective? from a personal perspective.
Personal perspective.
And it doesn't even have to be a solution. It's just something that you maybe think about. Like, how can gender for all races, ages, just how can this payment gap actually be bridged?
Well, I think personally, like as a mother of three, I think it's so much about what we are showing, how we're showing up in our personal lives, how we're showing up with our children. What are they seeing in your home? I do think we have a very traditional household in which I do most things for the children, and my husband is the one that fixes things. Uh, but I also believe in tapping into natural talent. But they also see me showing up and see me working and see me going for all that I want. So what we want is what, like I always say, it's like we want things for our children, but are we doing them ourselves? Are we being it?
Good. Yeah, like goosebumps.
Yeah. So on that personal level, are you being what you want your children to become? Are you embodying that what you stand for? And if you're not, that's where it starts. It starts with you. It will never start with you advocating outside of the home, outside of your personal life. But are you doing it? Are you being it? Because the children are the future, so they're watching. It's not your words, it's your actions.
It's so true. Leah, what do you think? Or what do you feel?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Karin. It definitely does start at home. We are raising a generation of the future, and so if you're not teaching your children about these topics, if you're not actually giving them practical actions, introducing them to all these different things and actually having the conversations, then what are they going to know? But I also think we need to lean more on the current generation, the up and coming generation, and maybe not so much the very young, but it's, for example, in our actual chat where Sue Ann mentions Chadwick, the late Chadwick, who passed away this year. Yeah, and what he did for his co-star, and I think that is such a great starting point, is actually leaning on the men in these industries, leaning on the bosses, having the conversations, these difficult conversations, actually going in and, let's say you're offered a job. You know that this job is worth X amount. You want this job. You know that you can do this job brilliantly, as well as any other person. Like you said, it doesn't matter what race, age, you know that you're capable. But you also know that you're being offered less. Have the conversation. Don't be afraid. And that's where I think we need to actually change our way, our mentality. We are often too afraid to have the conversations. We so desperately need these jobs. We need to feed our families. We need all these things. We want these opportunities, so we settle for less. It's easier said than done, but I think we need to do that.
Whilst you both were talking, I was just thinking, as women, we have so much more ground to stand on at the moment that we can voice our, what we're feeling, what we're thinking. Not every woman takes advantage of that, but many of us do. When we're thinking, though, of transgender, them, they, whatever gender, whatever race, what ground do you feel that they should be standing on? Yes, it starts at home, but when at home things aren't happening and you're wanting to go for a job and ask for equal pay, if not more, what could you suggest? Because it has a lot to do with your mental health as well and your mindset, and when you're going in to ask for something like that. Where do you think, just maybe 3 steps, so we don't see the mountain, we just see the steps, in which direction they could go into consider? Because for women, we've got a lot of support. We do have women in parliament now, not everywhere, but we do have strong examples, not for example role models, but there aren't that many for other gender gaps. How can we transfer what we've learned or been given and fought for as women? We haven't been given it, we fought for it, that we can transfer also then to other gender gaps. Yeah.
Karen, you can go for it.
You don't ask easy questions, Sashka. I'm like, well, let's just right away resolve world hunger. What?
That's why we don't see the mountain, we see the steps. So if we're starting things at home, or when we're doing things from home, because you made such a valid point, it's like, oh yeah, of course. I don't know how many times I've read quotes about that everything starts at home. And I have daughters and son. And if at home the daughter and son are transgender or gay or lesbian that aren't accepted and need that gender pay gap, that equality, what are the things, where are they going? There isn't that much help around. There isn't that much exposure. So what can we do, or what have we seen that's happening in the world of women gender equality that we can transfer over to race gender of equal status?
Well, I think like Leah has already addressed, I think it's the openness about it. It's about just that complete transparency on their own process, that I think the women's movements they've been trying to be very transparent about everything that they have been encountering. I mean, I'm not talking, it's not even only just gender equality, but the Me Too movement. It was just like this big bucket, this big Pandora's box just opened up, and it became very transparent what it was to be a woman in a very male-dominated world. And I think in when we're talking about the other communities, it's about the transparency of the experience, and the more we can talk about the experience of being, the experience, because it's not the mind. It's like, I'm afraid to go out at night. I'm always looking over my shoulder. I know that I will not, like, it's the experience that we have to be talking about over and over again, even though people don't like to hear it. This is what some of those people just like, yeah. We've been hearing about it all the time. Yeah, but you haven't been living it. And that somebody feels that need to share that experience, and you haven't had it, doesn't mean that it's still not theirs. And I think the more we talk about that, the more awareness can come into all these worlds as we go in and ask for equal rights, or say, equal social world that we can discuss about, but okay. But just about that transparency in the process of being you.
I love that. Leah?
Absolutely. Yeah, again, totally agree. The conversation, being able to have the conversation. But as you mentioned, it also has to do with your personal, emotional, and mental, strength, basically. Not everyone is going to be able to walk into an interview or a second interview and say, well, listen, this is what I think I deserve. They may not have never mind just the emotional strength or the confidence, but they may desperately need that job. And so we still find that there are so many, many areas all over the world that are still exploiting people that are desperate, pretty much, people that are really, really in need. This is happening everywhere. So I think one of the steps would be accountability. And how does accountability happen? Well, it happens with government bills that are passed, groups that form that actually push for change, that push for laws, that push for accountability. So for example, if you are running a business like here in South Africa, where BEE became law, it became something that you needed to have if you wanted to do XYZ. And you could do something like that with regards to women, to transgender, to you could create rules, create accountability for companies that employ these kinds of people, that employ the smaller demographic and not just the white male at the end of the day. And that's how you start. But these things do take time. The point is, if we're not having the conversations, which is why this is such an awesome podcast, because it's a conversation. And I think you've got people on board here that are not afraid to say what needs to be said. We're not afraid to stand up. And this is where you see history, and where you see progress through history, is the people that are willing to speak up for the underdog, the people that are willing to go to court, the people that are willing to stand in parliament, the people that are willing to riot and say, we won't accept it anymore. So there are those that are strong enough to speak up for the weaker people. And that's, so I agree with Karin, it's about the conversation and then accountability. And it can be done in small ways, and it can move into bigger things, you know, and that's what is happening. But we can all take part. Every single person can actually take part. It starts at home, it carries on in your social circle, and it's the choices you make.
Yeah, you know, it really saddens me to even realize that this is just not a given. You know what I mean? I'm like, every time it blows my mind that this is just,
that it's not the norm.
That this is not the norm. That we have to make. That we have to make this policy, that we have to make this a protocol, that there have to be companies where this is the only way that somebody will hire a Black person, a woman. Come on, really? Is it not about basic humanity and just about your qualifications? That should be enough if it's for a job. Look, I'm freaking qualified. I know my shit. So why am I not the one there earning that salary and getting that darn job? That pisses me off, of course, and that's where my sadness comes from, because I'm like, why isn't this the norm? So yeah. I don't even,
I understand from
when we talk about policies, when we talk about policies, I'm always like, really? We have to put this on paper for this to be just B?
Yeah. But if you think about a couple of years ago, you know, this is the way that we've gotten this far, because we have to remember how far we have come. We have to. It has, you know, we are actually living in the best time, and I keep saying this to a lot of people who look. I'm in a very cushy situation. Okay, so but I've had my own issues. Okay, I've had my own things, but I'm well, I'm healthy, I have a good job, I get paid well for it, etc., etc. Nevertheless, we are all living in the best time in humanity that it's ever been. But there are still, and that's why the people that are in the cushier situations, the people that have the capacity to speak up for those that still do not, and there's still far too many. I agree with you. It's so sad to think that this is what you need to do, that this is the way you have to go, and you can't just expect people to just be humane. But then that gets into loads of different other subjects, like upbringing, like environment, like country, like there's so much to it. And so it's going to take a long time for us to change the narrative, and that starts at home. And that's why it is important for homes to start teaching their children better ways. But even that has improved dramatically. It really has. So we're on a good track here.
We are on good track. Just recently I watched something on Netflix because I felt like watching a feel-good movie, and I haven't done that in a while. And there's a release now, so if you're listening to this in a few months' time, you can go back and have a look at it. It's called The Holiday. And I was watching it, and whilst I was watching it and we're having the conversation, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if you had a gender date or whatever it is called, or an accountability date or something. And if you're going for that interview, that you have someone that you take with you to kind of like power you up and stand behind you, so that you don't feel that you're alone, that you're supported.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times.
Well, that's unions pretty much. That you know,
unions,
technically,
but
like that was the idea.
Yeah, but it's like what Karin was saying. Then it goes into what we humans do is that we focus, we box, we label, we stigma, and unions have that. They have that stigma around them, that it's all about the policies and it's the rights and the laws, and it's okay. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just the focus is on fighting for that, and you kind of lose track of the reason why. And that goes, that kind of fades in the back. Yeah.
I
So,
agree.
and just kind of like, just when veganism came out, or vegan or whatever, and people were looking for beauty products that don't have animal cruelty, and there was always the question, where is a website or one place that I can go to that I can click on there and go, is this product sustainable or not? And still to this day, I haven't found a website like that. I don't know. There isn't one space. I haven't found it because I haven't been looking actively now. Because back then I was like, oh, I can't be bothered anymore, because you go down a rabbit hole. But just having these one spaces where you just know this is your your support, like the
Your safe
AA,
space.
if I'm addicted, I go there for my addiction. And there's no
Yeah,
space
yeah.
where you're going, this is my space to help me with this equality thing.
Absolutely, like a
Mm.
trust, like it's trust, but that's what I mean. I think the union started off, the whole idea of a union started off with that mindset, but obviously it's so sad because it's changed, and I agree with you. It's no longer what I think it meant, what they meant for it to be when it all started, and when people came up with the idea. But I love that, like a support sort of.
Date
I know what you're
buddy.
trying to say. Someone, yeah.
Support buddy.
Listen, phone Sashka. Sashka will come with you to the interview. She will make sure
Yeah.
she is going to fight for you. That would be so cool. Can you imagine the owners of these companies there? They'd be the ones with picket boards and stuff outside. They'd be like,
But
absolutely not.
the difference though to a union is that I'm not fighting for someone, I'm empowering someone to fight for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing about like that's what I'm saying. It saddens me that this is all necessary because it's a fight mentality. It's my right mentality. And it's that the problem with all these, with the riots and all these, of course we want to be heard and everybody wants to take their piece, but it's still very negative. And when there's that fight energy, people tend to back off, not because they agree, you're not changing their minds, but because it's just negative. and sometimes I wonder if we are being heard the way we want to be heard because of these ways of protesting or ganging up together, right?
It's a very interesting point.
Yeah, with the feminist movement and things like that. A lot of women, am I a feminist? Not in the true sense.
Same, yeah.
I'm not. And people say, how can you say that? You're a woman. Because I'm not. I am very much a woman. I am not a feminist in that there was in the feminist movement, my aunt, who passed away 11 years ago, was very much a feminist, such a feminist. And I mean, she was like a university professor in feminism, women's rights. She created laws in the Netherlands, the right to breastfeed in the workplace. She was behind that here in the Netherlands. She published like crazy. Yet she was the one that cooked every day, and she loved to iron. She was the Zen moment. She got an iron for her birthday, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And she's like, oh, I love to iron. It just quiets my mind, right? But she was a fighter in and I'm not a fighter. So I don't have that in me to be that I don't know, like, oh yeah, I'm very, I like to shave my armpits.
Me too.
Depends whether it's winter or summer, guys.
All year round, I have shaved armpits. It's just that.
Sorry, man, it must be the French in me.
It's the silly things, but sometimes I wonder what the feminist movement actually, did it really empower us, or did it just give us a bigger workload? And as women, which is something that I, like, yeah, you can be everything, but you don't have to be everything. And that is something that we haven't been taught in the last 20, 30 years since the feminist movement, 40 years, 50 years, oh my God, we're old. But you realize, wait a minute, I have to come back 22.
Yeah, you're going 2000, and you're like 20 years.
Darn. But
Shit.
we haven't been taught. We've been taught you can be everything. And that means we have to be everything. And that's not really easier for us as women. So we go into another conversation about gender equality, but that gender equality does not mean you have to be a man, or that you have to have same things that a man does, but because it's just not the reality of our lives. And it's just, we are very much women. We have certain wiring. It's women specific.
In the article, there was the pattern of gender inequality which is my next question, is that, or question statement, something to think about, which you were speaking about now, Karin and Leah, is that we as humans, we're so adaptable. It doesn't matter what happens, we adapt to whatever comes. So yes, the feminism movement, so we adapted to that, but we actually took on more of a workload than we could. Well, not that we can't handle it, we just took on more of a workload. It was like, well, that wasn't actually the point. The pattern is every time there's something to fight for, we're going through a back door, through a window where the door isn't actually open, learning new things, learning our capacity, discovering, oh my God, I had no idea that I could be this, this, and this, and this, and this. Or, irrespective of which gender. But the whole thing is that the main goal wasn't achieved in end effect. So you stand there with all these gained talents and superpowers, but you still stand there going, oh, hang on a moment. And there's a comedian, I think it's Ali Wong.
Oh yeah.
And I have to find the link, and then I'll put this in the comments, where she said, you feminists have screwed up my life. Because I didn't want to take on all this impossibility. You're the ones that have had to make me up. Now I have to be the breadwinner, and I didn't want to be the breadwinner. And it just came to me naturally because I had to find the back doors, but I don't want the back doors. I want to be lying on the couch and have someone else provide for me. I'm like,
I love her. I saw both her Netflix specials, and they're hilarious because they're just so true. And I have the same thing, right? Like, I don't mind my husband providing for me. There's nothing in me that says, oh my God, you're not being a good feminist. No, I'm like, oh, thank God I don't have that also on me, because I already have all these other things that are on my plate. And that's fine. And that we don't, we're a partnership. And when you're not in a partnership, then you have to take all these roles. And that's freaking hard. But if you have it, why not enjoy it?
I want to speak up here for the feminists. If
yes,
I may,
please.
I'm feeling like, hang on now, because I am.
Go.
And I like doing it. No, the thing is, I think a lot of people take the word feminism totally out of context. And I won't say that many people... Yeah, I agree that some are to blame for that. It's just like with religion, for example. There'll be a small group of people that give it a bad name. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's the same for feminism, because really feminism is really just the advocacy of women's rights. And we're not talking from a very cushy stance. We're talking because we are in good positions. Now, I'm a single mom, and yes, I have had to provide a lot more than I would have liked. Would I have liked to also be a housewife, or maybe just have a hobby that brings in extra, but it's more for my creativity and pleasure, or be part of some, movement or something like that to spend my time? Yes, I would have loved to. I didn't have the opportunity, but we're talking about something so much bigger. And these women that in 60 years ago started fighting or advocating for women's liberation, they weren't so much doing it for, in my opinion, for the women who were comfortable being at home. Because I know in America there was a huge thing of the very conservative woman saying, but I like to be this. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And that needs to be very clear. You can do whatever you want. If you like to bake and clean house, that's freaking awesome. I'm great at cleaning. I love cleaning. And you can put that under a woman's category, whatever. But we're talking about something like 15 million girls that will never learn to read and write.
Yeah.
We're talking about women that still have their, genitalia mutilated for cultural reasons, and they have no foot to stand on. And if it weren't for feminist movements and women's liberation, we would definitely not be this far. So I get all the comedy around it, and I love comedy as well, so I can have a good chuckle. But let's not forget the people and the women that have had to stand very, very steady till today. If you look at someone like Malala Yousafzai, who is a huge women's rights activist because of what has happened in her own life. If you don't know about Malala Yousafzai, I'd go check her out. She now lives in the UK. She's managed to study further. She's an amazing, amazing role model for girls and for people's education, for girls' education. Her father was a teacher. And so this is where I think it is so important, where feminism, where women's liberations, women's rights are hugely, hugely important. I mean, we can't forget that they did massive, massive work. And they continue to, because our fight's not over for that.
Totally agree with you, Leah.
But that's where it gets also so interesting when we get into cultures, because it's the cultural aspects that we then start to have to talk about. I did a year of cultural anthropology. That was like for me, it was such a mind-blowing experience where we to dive into cultures and the cultural aspects of then, because we can talk about policy, we can talk about human rights and women's rights, but then the cultural aspects get into it. And that's where it gets so darn complicated. How do you go then and transform a whole culture to accept rights? Oh my God. Then it gets we're going down the rabbit hole.
It gets scary.
But it's the 3 steps. I just want to come back to why I started then with what are 3 steps, because we start seeing the mountain. And what I really like is that we said transparency and experience, awareness and accountability. And just those 3 things I personally find very doable. Yes, there's the culture. Yes, there's the fight, the equality, but just breaking it down, chunking it down. And I totally agree with you as well, Leah, that not to take for granted where I am right now, that I can listen to someone making jokes about equality or feminism that could never have been done in the past, but maybe flipping the coin and not fighting for something, but using different techniques. I don't want to say that we go laissez-faire, because like you say, genital mutilation and children, young children being married, where it's just, but that's where the cultures come in. And it's understanding, not looking at the tip of the iceberg, but below that. Why were those mutilations brought in? I mean, we go into detail, we know all these things, but it's often not. What we do is we go tooth for tooth, nail for nail, whatever it's called, I can't remember now, rather than a different perspective. And there's always this fight. In every history, whatever there is, someone's always fighting for something, which is okay, but where does it actually get us? It's a lot of energy. We're learning new things. Again, this pattern of inequality, we're learning new things, but we never actually achieve what we wanted to in the beginning. And it's about equality, that someone that wants to be at home can, but someone that doesn't want to, they can also. So it's moving forward with that, whether I'm, woman can't go out late at night or something. I mean, she can, but you know what I mean? It's not
There's
safe.
A fear around
but
it,
the same goes for gay and lesbians. The same goes for a transgender. The same goes for young girls, young boys. Like, no one's, in inverted commas, safe. against anything now. And it's, even though I haven't experienced it, like Karin also said, I can also stand for it and stand against what's not serving someone to move forward and grow forward. I think
empathy.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's a big thing here where we talk about our children and future generations. Empathy can be learned. It's actually not just an innate quality. It can be taught. It can be learned. And we should start teaching it a lot more. I think we're far more accepting of one another as a human race. But it is something that is important, and it can be brought in schools as well. I don't see it enough anywhere where I come from, that's for sure. I mentioned before that, there's countries, the Scandinavian countries, wow, they teach it big time. It's a huge, huge part of their curriculum. And I think it's really got to do with reason, logic, empathy. These things need to become part of our emotional intelligence more and more, because it's the only way that we will not have to fight, where we have understanding. Because the problem is that we want to just have the conversation. We want to go in and say, look, sir, I want this job, but I want it at the same pay as my counterparts, my male counterparts. But we're going to come up against walls. And when you come up against walls, the only way to get past it is to break it down very often. You can try to climb over it. It's harder, it takes longer. So you break it down. And that's where the fight comes in. If future generations are more understanding, more empathetic, have more reason and logic, get rid of, cultural biases and superstitions and everything that puts these walls up, really, pretty much that's what puts the walls up. If we can teach these people, this next generation, then there's a better chance.
Ourselves first, the
Absolutely.
empathy that we can teach everyone. Well, also, firm believer, I need to teach myself, and the ripple effect is that I'll attract those that want to learn it as well. Teaching others, do you want to or don't you? So people that are going to studying to universities or colleges or online courses or whatever it is, they're wanting to learn something, and giving them that needs to be learned, that gives them a seed to plant, a perspective that they can build on. We don't always have to change, reinvent the wheel, but we can always build on top of it. So this conversation is just building on top of what's already there. What we see is, maybe we should be a little bit more accountable. Yeah, maybe we need some more transparency about experience, and maybe we should also be more aware. So those that are listening, where there's awareness, if you're listening to this and you're going, I stand against people that are against gender equality, and you have a support group or whatever, that you put it in the comments. Let us know. Let us spread the message, because I don't know everything. If I did, I might as well step in my grave and move on to my next life. But I don't. So that's why I've started this. I've been given this idea. Let's do Future Forward Hub. Let's talk about this and let's bring it forward. Yeah. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Karin, do you still want to say something?
No, I think you summed it up really nicely. And it is the, the from our cushioned lives sometimes, because we are very, very fortunate, and I understand that, and we sometimes forget, right? So Leah, thank you so much for bringing that up again. The cultural aspect, the other parts of the world where these equality aspects are even deeper ingrained in everything. That makes it very difficult for equality to be all equality on all levels. So it's just so important for us to be so aware. Just how are we communicating? How are we? What are we being? And how can we support in any way? And even if it is showing up for a conversation, it is about challenging views. It is about speaking up when you hear somebody, you're like, well, that's just not okay. And I think that the more we challenge and we speak up, we just speak up, just speak up. We stay quiet when we know there's injustice in what's being said or what's being done.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, we don't have to be on the marching, but we can, even if it's in just small moments when you see it happening in your own environment and you already speak up, you're contributing to that field of that movement. And because sometimes we think we're not doing enough, so we don't have any right to speak up, but that's not true. Every heart you touch, every mind you open up to a new experience, it's one more. And we don't know how many they will touch. I think that's just so important.
I love that. I love that, Karin. And it's so true. We don't realize just by speaking, just by having a conversation, sometimes we don't understand because we haven't experienced it. We haven't experienced what someone else is going through. A 12-year-old, I cannot imagine my daughter at 12 years old being married off to some 50-year-old. I just couldn't. And I have the empowerment and the tools to stand against that. But there are others that don't have it. But we can be, I don't want to just be a voice. I actually want to give tools to help others move forward. And for those that are listening who feel lost and don't understand, don't have the tools to comment or to DM us and let us know. I mean, go onto the contributor page, futureforwardhub.com, get in contact with one of the contributors, and let's start a conversation. Let's get this out. Let's just build on top of it, and be there for one another. I think that's just, and not be afraid of being there for one another. No one's going to suck you dry. No one's going to, rob you of your whatever. Those of us that have learned through things in life understand, listen, you're being a victim right now. Pull up your girly boy, transgender, whatever panties, and let's buckle up. You can't be doing this your whole life.
This
Here's
is what needs to be done.
Work on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. For anyone listening, it's really, for me, just share your stories. I think that's huge, because you can't have everybody's life experience. And so you have your own. And if you're willing to share those with one another, it makes a world of difference. Are you having a conversation with your children at home? Are you speaking about these things? Are you awakening them to the world around them? Or are you just staying within a certain, closed vision? Because that's what it is. We grew up not seeing anything else about the world. It was very narrow. I just say, open your horizons, share your stories, tell your kids about other people, read them bedtime stories, read them history, let them learn, and share your real happenings with other people, especially if you know that someone could benefit from it. I think if you're listening, that's maybe the biggest goal right now. And like Karin says, stick up for someone today. If you see something, say something. And I think that's a huge movement anyway, wherever we go. But it is so important to teach our children that. Say something, defend it, be kind, show empathy, just make a difference, even if it's just if you think it's a drop in the ocean, because that has a ripple effect.
It does. Thank you, Leah and Karin.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having the conversation.
Yes, and we're going to keep the conversation going, folks. So leave us a comment. Let us know how you feel about gender equality or the inequality and the patterns of it, how it's changed or impacted your life. We would definitely love to hear from you, your feedback, what you think. And remember, it's not my way. My way is not better than your way. It's about being kind to one another despite the difference in viewpoints, and understanding the different, where you're coming from, learning the tools on how we can converse with one another. We are made equal, but we have different growth journeys, and we learn from one another. So for today, I challenge you to look at yourself and look at things and break the stigma on things that don't have to be boxed or labeled. You may be in a conversation with a friend today where you typically make a joke about something where where you feel inwards, don't really like that, speak up for that. So like, yeah, I don't really like that. Hey, can we change the subject? And delve into that, stand up for it, because it's something within you that needs to be addressed as well, where you can help break the stigma. So I want to thank you for listening, and remember to hit that subscribe button to keep yourself in the loop of new episodes launched weekly. And of course, head over to futureforwardhub.com and find out more about our contributors. Just click that red button for each contributor and follow the yellow brick road to where you can find them in the online world, online space. They would love to hear from you too. So until next time, love you lots from me, and arrivederci, because I'm learning Italian now. Have an awesome day. Thank you so much, Karin and Leah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.